You voted for politicians, but politicians don't run your life. Faceless administrators do. Unelected, unaccountable, unknown. Every permit you need, every form you fill, every regulation that suffocates your business, none of it came from anyone you chose. The people who control your daily life were never on any ballot. This isn't democracy. This is administrative despotism wearing a suit and tie. Rules without representation. The Founding Fathers warned us about tyranny. They imagined kings and generals. They never imagined it would come through paperwork, through compliance departments, through regulatory agencies with acronyms nobody understands. Today, we're going to expose how the machinery of bureaucracy became the soft tyranny nobody talks about, and why it's more dangerous than any dictator because you can't even see it coming. The invisible rulers. Here's a number that should terrify you. There are over 2 million federal employees in the United States alone. 2 million people making rules, enforcing codes, and deciding what you can and cannot do with your property, your business, your life. Not one of them was elected. Not one of them can be voted out. The president changes every 4 or 8 years. Congress reshuffles. But the bureaucracy, it stays, it grows, it metastasizes like a tumor that can never be removed. The bureaucracy is expanding to meet the needs of the expanding bureaucracy. This isn't a joke, it's a diagnosis. In 2023, federal agencies issued over 3,000 new rules. Congress passed fewer than 100 laws. Think about that ratio. For every law your elected representatives debated and voted on, unelected bureaucrats created 30 new regulations with the force of law. You didn't consent to any of them. You probably don't even know they exist. But try breaking one and see what happens. The invisible rulers don't need your vote. They already have your compliance. Democracy's illusion. Every election cycle, they tell you your vote matters. It's the cornerstone of democracy, they say, the voice of the people. But here's what they don't tell you. The permanent government doesn't change regardless of who wins. Presidents come and go. The bureaucracy remains. When a new administration takes office, they inherit an army of career officials who have been there for decades. These officials have their own agendas, their own institutional interests, their own way of doing things. Deep state is real, and if the elected leader tries to change direction, they slow walk, they leak, they resist, they wait. Because they know something the voters don't, they'll still be there when the politician is gone. This is what political scientists call the principal agent problem. You elect representatives to carry out your will, but those representatives must work through agents, bureaucrats who have their own interests, and over time the agents capture the system. The tail wags the dog. If this is making you question everything you've been told about how your government actually works, hit like and subscribe to keep exposing what they hide. Because what comes next reveals who designed this system and why. Woodrow's vision. This didn't happen by accident. It was designed, and the architect had a name, Woodrow Wilson. Before he became president, Wilson was a political scientist, and he had a theory, a dangerous one. Wilson believed that democracy was messy, inefficient, and driven by the passions of ignorant masses. The solution: separate politics from administration. Let the people vote on broad directions, but leave the actual running of government to trained experts, professionals, technocrats. People too smart to need your input. In 1887, Wilson wrote that administration should be removed from the hurry and strife of politics. He wanted government run like a business, with managers who knew better than citizens what citizens needed. This was the birth of the administrative state. Wilson's vision spread through academia, then through government. The progressive era embraced it. The New Deal institutionalized it. By the mid-20th century, the expert class had won, and the people had lost something they didn't even know they had: the right to govern themselves through their elected representatives. The expertise trap. The argument seems reasonable on its surface. Complex problems require expert solutions. You wouldn't want amateurs designing bridges or performing surgery. Why should amateurs make policy about nuclear energy or pharmaceutical safety? But here's the trap. Experts. The expert class has its own interests. Regulators who oversee industries often come from those industries and return to them after government service. This revolving door creates a cozy relationship between the regulated and the regulators. The FDA approves drugs from companies whose executives will later sit on FDA advisory boards. The SEC writes rules that benefit the Wall Street firms its officials will later join. Regulatory capture is not a bug, it's a feature. Economist George Stigler won a Nobel Prize for demonstrating this. Regulations that supposedly protect the public often protect incumbent businesses from competition. The experts don't serve you. They serve the system that pays them. And that system is not democracy. It's bureaucracy. Rule by paperwork. Tyranny used to require soldiers. Now it requires forms. Consider what it takes to start a simple business in America. Licenses, permits, zoning approvals, health inspections, environmental assessments, tax registrations, employment compliance. Each requirement seems small. Each agency seems reasonable. But together, death by 1,000 cuts. The Institute for Justice found that the average low-income entrepreneur needs over 100 days and several $1,000s just to comply with licensing requirements. That's before selling a single product, before earning a single dollar. This isn't protecting the public. It's protecting established businesses from competition. It's keeping the poor from climbing the economic ladder. The bureaucracy doesn't need to say no. It just needs to make yes so complicated, so expensive, so time-consuming that most people give up. This is soft tyranny. No jackboots, no secret police, just endless paperwork and the quiet crushing of human ambition. But this brings us to something even more disturbing about how this system perpetuates itself. The growth machine. Here's the dirty secret of bureaucracy. It never shrinks. Every problem becomes a reason for more bureaucracy. Every failure becomes a reason for more funding. When a regulatory agency fails to prevent a crisis, does it get abolished? No, it gets expanded. More staff, more budget, more power. The bureaucracy multiplies. The Department of Education was created in 1979 with 3,000 employees. Today, it has over 4,000. While American students have fallen behind internationally. The TSA was created after 9/11 with 16,000 employees. Today, it has over 50,000, while missing most weapons in security tests. Failure is the fertilizer of bureaucratic growth. Private businesses that fail go bankrupt. Government agencies that fail get bigger. This is the fundamental difference. In markets, failure is punished. In bureaucracy, failure is rewarded. The worse things get, the more resources the bureaucracy claims it needs. And since the bureaucracy measures its own performance, it always finds reasons to grow. Kafka was right. Franz Kafka wrote about bureaucratic nightmares a century ago. His protagonist, Joseph K., is arrested and prosecuted by an inaccessible authority, the nature of his crime never revealed. It seemed like dark fantasy then. It's in the nature of the bureaucratic system that nothing is ever forgotten. Now it's daily reality. Try navigating the immigration system. Try disputing a tax assessment. Try understanding why your permit was denied. You'll encounter a maze of offices, each pointing to another, none accepting responsibility, all demanding more documentation. The process is the punishment. The bureaucracy doesn't need to convict you of anything. It just needs to process you, to put you in the queue, to make you wait months or years for a decision that affects your life, your family, your future. Meanwhile, you have no one to appeal to. The bureaucrat who denied you isn't malicious, they're just following procedure. And the procedure wasn't written by anyone you can identify. This is the genius of soft tyranny. There's no villain, just a system. The European model. If you want to see where this leads, look at the European Union. Brussels has perfected administrative governance. The European Commission, unelected, proposes all legislation. The European Parliament can only approve or reject. National parliaments are increasingly irrelevant. Sovereignty surrendered to bureaucrats. The EU regulates the curvature of bananas, the wattage of vacuum cleaners, the size of olive oil containers in restaurants. These aren't jokes. These are actual regulations imposed on 500 million people by officials they never voted for and cannot remove. When European citizens voted against EU treaties in referendums, as they did in France, Netherlands, and Ireland, they were told to vote again until they got it right. Democracy means getting the answer Brussels wants. This is the end state of the administrative project. A post-democratic governance where experts know best, citizens are consulted but not heeded, and the bureaucratic apparatus rolls forward regardless of what the people want. America is heading down the same path. Who benefits? Follow the money. Always follow the money. Who benefits from this vast regulatory apparatus? Not small businesses, they're crushed by compliance costs. Not workers, they're priced out of occupations by licensing requirements. Not consumers, they pay higher prices for protected industries. Corporations. Big corporations love regulation. They can afford the lawyers and compliance officers. Their competitors can't. Every new regulation is a barrier to entry that protects incumbents from challengers. Amazon can handle new privacy regulations. Your local online store cannot. Goldman Sachs can navigate Dodd-Frank. Community banks cannot. 1. Regulations increase costs. 2. Big firms absorb costs easily. 3. Small firms get crushed. 4. Competition dies. 5. Monopolies thrive. This is why corporate lobbying often pushes for more regulation, not less. The administrative state isn't fighting big business. It's in partnership with big business. Against you. Against competition. Against the creative destruction that would threaten established powers. But here's what happens when people finally see through the charade. Reclaiming power. So what can be done? First, recognize the enemy. It's not left or right. It's not red or blue. It's the permanent bureaucratic class that transcends political parties and serves its own interests regardless of who wins elections. The price of liberty is eternal vigilance. Second, demand accountability. Every regulation should have a sunset clause. Every agency should face regular review. The burden of proof should be on government to justify its existence, not on citizens to prove they deserve freedom. Third, decentralize. Power closer to the people is power more accountable to the people. States can experiment. Cities can innovate. Competition between jurisdictions limits bureaucratic overreach. Local beats federal. Fourth, build parallel structures. Homeschooling, alternative currencies, mutual aid societies. The more you can operate outside the bureaucratic system, the less power it has over your life. The administrative state took a century to build. It won't be dismantled overnight. But every act of noncompliance, every question asked, every assumption challenged weakens its grip. Tyranny only survives because people comply. Stop complying. The soft tyranny of bureaucracy is the defining political issue of our time, yet almost nobody talks about it. We argue about politicians while administrators rule. We vote for change while the permanent government stays the same. We blame each other while the system serves itself. Of all tyrannies, a tyranny sincerely exercised for the good of its victims may be the most oppressive. This is what we face. Not evil people in dark rooms, but well-meaning bureaucrats who believe they know better than you how to run your life, and a system that rewards their expansion at the expense of your freedom. The pattern is clear. From ancient Rome to modern Brussels, from Woodrow Wilson to today's regulatory state, centralized administrative power always grows, always captures, always serves itself. See the pattern now. If you made it this far, comment paperwork tyranny to prove you understand what most people never will. Every government lies. The question is, what are they lying about? In this case, they're lying about who really rules. Now you know the answer. The truth is out there. You just have to follow the paperwork. Subscribe if you want to keep exposing what the bureaucracy hides.